As you do, right, we're going to have a look at the remove and replace the cylinder head gasket. We've got a JCB treble 4 engine here. This is what we're going to work on today. We'll start off, as we do with every lesson, we'll have a little think about our PPE. So we'll be thinking about our boots, overalls, visors, or safety glasses, barrier cream, gloves if you really need them, and make sure that we're wearing an ID badge. You never know. Right, 5 watts risk assessment. We also have a think about what we're going to come across problem-wise, what we sort of envisage that could go wrong, and how we can prevent it. So we normally do our 5 watts board. We usually have those little yellow boards. We fill them in as we go along, make them dynamic. So we'll think about that. Moving on, we're going to start off. I've got a few bits and pieces here, mainly data. This has been taken from the JCB workshop manual, which is very small for the camera, so I wrote it out on the board a little bit. In here we've got things like head bolt torques, valve clearance settings, and any other information you might need. You'll find it all in there. So this is the engine, and we're going to make a bit of a start on this. So we've got our cylinder head. Bottom half's the block, cylinder head starts right here, and that's where our gasket is. This is where I've got a seal between the block and the head. So we're sealing gases, we're sealing water, we're sealing oil. So, to get at it, first of all, I have made this quite quick release. So, we would have Jubilee clips and things to fasten the hoses. So, that's that out of the way. I always like to get them out of the way because then it gives us room to stand the head on its side when we come to take it off, and we can get our valve spring compressors and things in if we take this manifold out of the way. Now, I did say it's quite quick release. And we should be able to move it out of the way. Right, so exhaust manifold and turbo. There should actually be a gasket on there as well. It's usually a steel gasket on that one. Just take that out because we'll catch ourselves on it. Right, okay, so moving on quickly. Injection pipes. Take them out of the way. I prefer to take them off completely. Now these only go on one way round. They are steel, they've been factory bent. If you start bending them too much, you'll crack them, so be careful of those. Try and keep them something like. One quickly removes rocker cover. Now under here, we've got a gasket. We have replaced these before. Yeah, so they just sort of sit in and they're grooved, so they can't actually go wrong. It's important to torque them when we finish, for the simple reason if we squash it too tight one end. Now then, rocker shaft, rockers themselves. Now these have 4 valves per cylinder, so I'll have 2 inlet, 2 exhaust, and this is where we have a little bridge in between the 2. Yeah, so one arm can actually push both valves down together, and because one spring's equally balanced, they both go down equal amounts. So when we come to reset our valve clearances later on, we'll be looking at the gap in between here. We could get a feeler gauge in there, but as most usual, the best way is actually sit a DTI gauge and sit it on top and see what movement you got. Anyway, we should lift all this off, complete in one piece. Now then, put it down as it came off the engine. And what I'm going to do now is, the front of my engine is here. That's the front of my valve shaft, my rocker shaft. Yeah, so ideally we need to take these push rods out now, which sit in the camshaft followers in the bottom, and each of these have all got like a machine end on them, yeah, and they're sort of roundish. As they're going round over the years, yeah, they're always rotating, so they do wear to suit themselves. So always try and keep these in the order that you took them out. So first one, second one. Okay, 3 and 4. It's a good idea with these sometimes to get a piece of cardboard, make 8 holes in it, number the holes. That way, if they push through the holes in the cardboard, they can't roll off. Okay, so that's everything out. Of course, our inlet manifold. Now then, this should come off better than what the exhaust valve did. Exhaust manifold did. Okay, and again, the simple use of this is we can stand it on this side now on the bench. Anywhere we want. Right, now, diesel engine. We've got injectors, and the injectors protrude through the cylinder head on the underside. If we was to put that head down, these protrude through, whatever surface we put it on, we're going to damage the tips. So always take them out. Again, put them in the order of the cylinder they came from. So we've got 4, and they're only clamped in. You would slacken the bolt is actually pulling the clamp down tight, and the seal is happening down the bottom and the O-ring on the side. Okay. Okay, so now we're left with the rocker bridges. So they can come off, keep them in order again. Right, what we're left with now is the cylinder head bolts. Now what I did with these, and the way you should do it, is that the cylinder head is a block of metal separate from the cylinder block itself. If we just started at one end undoing bolts, as we undo it, we're going to release that pressure, and the head, in actual fact, will curl up. You wouldn't notice it a great lot, but when you go it upside down afterwards, put a straight edge on it, you might find you've got a warped head. This can happen through heat anyway. So it's important that we start from the outside and work our way in. When we come to rebuild it, I've got a couple there I missed. These are actually special bolts. The stretch bolts, you could only use them once, and the reason being is you put them in, you torque them up, and they're actually torqued up quite tight, and then we turn them. We turn them 90 degrees. Then we go around and we do it again, turn another 90 degrees. We're actually getting a lot of force trying to stretch them bolts. Consequently, when you come to use them a second time, the threads are stretched and you don't get the same sort of effort, and also you're not really getting an accurate reading because they've already been stretched previously. So, these head bolts can come out in any order. As I say, you wouldn't even really be using them twice. But right, so I think we're down to the last bolt, then we get an assistant. Now this cylinder head is quite heavy. What we need to do, thinking about moving loads, is make sure we've got a clear pathway before we start. Make sure we've got somewhere safe and flat and strong enough. Not going to have a table collapse or anything like that. So what I'll do is, I'll quickly move my socket. Got a nice flat area here, good strong table, and if I could just have a quick assistance please, mate. Use your fingers in the holes, yeah. Straight off we go. Just come towards the table. Thank you. And that's the beauty of taking the manifolds off. We can put it anywhere you want now, yeah? But what I was also showing before, I was telling you earlier about the injectors sticking through. Now, that's where they would normally sit. And as you can see, straight edge. Doesn't really matter, we can see it, can't we? It's actually protruding by maybe about a good 3 millimeters. Yeah? So if I was to put that down flat on the table, I'll take it out. But if I was to put it down flat on the table, yeah, you can understand that would be well and truly damaged by now. And this is where your atomization takes place. The holes in there are so fine you can't even see them. We're looking at half the width of a human hair. Okay, so that's our cylinder head removed. Very quickly, cylinder head gasket. Here we are. Right, so we can see here now, we can see we've got our waterways. Yeah, we've got the bolt holes. We've got more waterways around the side of here. And then we've also got the oil. Well, it's not really oil, well it is oil, but it is sealed from the oil, but this is where our push rods would be. Yeah. Still, yeah, so they will be in there. All these holes in there actually line up and correspond. So all these waterways, water jackets, or galleries, and then in particular then I've also got one hole, just trying to spot it. There's one hole there which is, there it is, yes, one oil way. Now this oil way, yeah, this is actually feeding, it's feeding to the top of my rocker assembly, and it's also feeding its way towards the turbo. So this pipe on the side we saw for the turbo is only a return. Yeah, the actual oil feed is from the head side. So that's our cylinder head. Now we're going to inspect this cylinder head gasket. As you can see, this has been pinched, it's been dropped, but it's probably been fitted quite a few times. We've got the copper which is imprinted as part of the gasket. It's made of 2 or 3 pieces laminated, yeah, and each one of these will have like a rubber silicone seal when it was new, so you wouldn't actually be able to pull it apart like that as such. It's just the heat has destroyed it, and one thing or another over time, and that's what's actually caused. Around the outside edges, you'll notice we've just got a steel wall and an indent. This is compressed so that when you put the head on it flat here, we've actually got a steel firewall. If it was a material that was like flammable or wouldn't stand the heat, yeah, it would burn away quickly. We quickly have hot exhaust gases passing through to waterways, yeah, which is what we're usually looking for when we take head gaskets off. 3 little holes in the side of here, just as identification. A lot of diesel engines have these. In particular, what it is that the gasket thicknesses can be different. And when it's manufactured, the engine, what they actually do is, if this will turn over, I'm not sure if it will or not, but we have, anyway, you can measure across the top of the block and the piston, and we sometimes have piston protrusion. So the thickness of that gasket can actually depend on how much that piston rises. So it's important to measure all these different things. Now, all these checks are all in the workshop manual, and they're all things that we spoke about when we actually do the job. As I say, this is just a recap. So, when I come to rebuild it, Most importantly, we start from the centre with our head bolts, yeah? So we'll start on this, in this case here, yeah? Start from number 1 and work towards number 14. I got all my numbers on here, yeah? From the centre working outwards. We're going to do it in 4 steps. So we'll use a torque turn method. We've got 65 Newton meters. So we'll start in the centre, work our way round, 85 Newton meters, reset our torque wrench, work our way round again. Then we go for the 3rd step, put the torque wrench away. What we're going to do now is we're actually going to turn each bolt 90 degrees. Yeah, so we have actually had a torque turn dial, yeah, which is more or less like a little protractor. We've used that in the past. We'll have a 2nd stage. Now the reason people have asked me before now is why don't we have 180, but for 90 degrees and 90 degrees, because we're starting again, so we're not just getting too much pressure in one area. I think we've covered most things there for that. Obviously we've got our special tools, E14 torque socket. As I said, the head bolts are a special torque socket bolt, torque wrench, and a DTI gauge to measure our valve clearances. That's about all I need to say. Thank you very much.